Welcome to Eternia Late Night. We have the power. I'm your host AJ, aka Voodoo Magic, aka Zor, and Eternia Late Night is the official offshoot of the Eternia podcast, where we are a little less structured and a little more raw, just featuring real conversations over a potential drink with no official plan on where it goes and where we land, discussing anything and everything. So how are we doing tonight, boys and girls? So I want to start tonight with testing your memory, a recall test. Let's see if you remember this one. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got the best for so much less. You'll really flip your lid. From bikes to trains to video games. They're the biggest toy store there is. Gee whiz. I don't want to grow up, but baby, if I did, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid. More games, more toys. Oh boy, I want to be a Toys R Us kid. Yeah, it's time for some gin. So, why I brought up that little jingle, and hopefully you sang along at home, is Toys R Us. For anyone who is my age that lived in the United States, Toys R Us was really the biggest toy store in the United States. If you compare it to like soda, Toys R Us was the Coca-Cola. They were the number one brand. And then there were competitors. There was a smaller chain called Child World. They were like the Pepsi Cola. And then there was KB toy stores, and they were more like the RC Cola. But Toys R Us was the big one, Coca-Cola, in regards to presence, in regards to sales, in regards to dominance. I mean, it was just like the number one. It originated, I think, back in the 40s and then kind of expanded and morphed in the 1950s. But they really had this idea where why don't we create a supermarket, like a grocery store for toys? And that's exactly what they did. They got these huge buildings, and they weren't worried about aesthetics like the little small mom and pop stores. I mean, some of those old family-owned toy stores used to have like little carpets on the floor and beautiful shelves. But nope, Toys R Us was more just warehouse. They didn't care what the store looked like. That floor was just cement. It was all about inventory and price, and they were massive. They had over or close to 1,500 locations. Let me repeat that. 1,500 locations. Gigantic toy store warehouses that you could just peruse the aisles and find all the toys that you're looking for. And it was crazy. And they were able to really close or drive all those little mom and pop stores, little family owned toy stores out of business, because of two reasons: because of inventory and because of price. I mean, no one had the inventory that Toys R Us did, and no one could compete with their prices because Toys R Us was so big and they had so many stores. They were buying so much, they had so much purchasing power that they were able to negotiate lower prices with the toy companies. Same Mattel, they'll say, I know everyone pays this much for a Masters of the Universe figure. Well, I'm going to pay a little less because we buy so many. And the toy companies agreed. So Toys R Us was able to sell all these toys at a lower price where these like individual mom and pop stores couldn't compete. And they ended up closing their doors, and they were just dominant in the toy retail industry. And they really knew how to market to kids as well. I mean, they did really well. The commercials were great, and they developed a mascot. It was they had a giraffe mascot named Jeffrey the giraffe. I think it was Jeffrey. Yeah, it was Jeffrey. I think in the early days, his name no joke, was G and then last name Raff. You get it? G Raff. Yeah, yeah. I would have retired that too. But he eventually became Jeffrey the Giraffe, and then I think they introduced a whole entire family. They would make appearances at the toy stores. They would have the big costume that they like they wear at Disney World, right? You can meet Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Minnie Mouse, and you can have breakfasts with these cartoon characters. Well, same thing at Toys R Us. The Jeffrey the Giraffe would show up, and small kids just loved it. They ate it up. So they really knew how to appeal and sell things to kids. Oh, and one of those ways was that song I just sang. I mean, what a catchy jingle. And, everyone wanted to be a Toys R Us kid after they heard that song. And you would hear that song constantly on every commercial that it got ingrained in your head. And here I am, over 20 years old, much older, and I still remember that jingle word for word. I mean, I might mess it up. I might have messed it up when I just sang it now. I might have gotten a few of the words wrong, but overall, I remember that jingle, and what a great jingle it was. So to come though full circle on why I brought that up was one of those lines in that Toys R Us jingle where it says, "I don't want to grow up." Well, apparently, kids of the 80s, they meant it. Kids of the 70s, they meant it because something happened. We reported it on Eternia.com this past Monday, uh, June 10th, that there's been a big shift in the toy industry. I mean, and this is epic. This is the first time it's ever happened. So for the first time ever in history, adults purchase more toys for themselves, not for kids, but for themselves, than any other age group. We did it. we beat those preschoolers. So apparently, for the longest time, in the toy market, the preschoolers, I think the ages 3 to 5, they were the key demographic. They were the most desired demographic in regards to toys. They consume the most toys. So until 2024, when adults would buy toys, they would be buying them primarily for that demographic. Yes, there were adults toys designed for adults and different age groups as well, but that was the number one demographic. But now here we are in 2024, in that first quarter, this was the first time where consumers, 18 and over, surpassed that previous age 3 to 5 demographic as the most lucrative age group in the toy industry. Apparently, adults who bought toys for adults, mostly themselves, but also other adults, accounted for 1.5 billion with a B, in toy sales for the months of January, February, and March 2024. And that's just crazy. And, it's wild, right? I mean, when you think about it, there's always been adults buying toys. But it was more niche, right? And it's never been mainstream before until now. Back then, like someone like me, you would buy some action figures, but you'd kind of hide it. You know what I mean? Because it was frowned upon, right? There was a stigma attached to it. Oh, you're one of those that collect action figures, you collect toys. What's wrong with you? Why are you so childish? Aren't you adult now? Haven't you grown out of that now? I mean, there was a real stigma where if you collected other things like coins, like stamps, like sports memorabilia, yeah, definitely sports memorabilia, autographs of like baseball players and football players and stuff, that wasn't frowned upon. You could frame that, put it in the wall of your den. That stuff was awesome. But when it came to toys, Even though everything I just said, coins, stamps, all that stuff is a form of collecting, when it came to action figures and stuff like that, yeah, there was a stigma attached. You were considered less than. But then something happened after COVID. There was, I think, a shift. And I think it wasn't just COVID, but I think COVID just came at the right time. And our age group really just blossomed into this now key demographic of the toy industry. And it's amazing. It's stunning. Is it a good thing? I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I've I think so, right? If it, reduces stress, if you enjoy doing it and you're not, like, putting yourself in the poorhouse buying toys. If you're not, like, spending away your child's, college education, so you could have, like, 3 Eternias and a bunch of Castle Grayskulls and all of these Mondo figures. As long as I think you're doing it with moderation, yeah, yeah, I think it's a good thing, right? I think so. And for all those husbands or those wives that are giving, their spouse the stink eye right now because their spouse has a lot of, Masters of the Universe action figures and collectibles. I'm like, you look at what you did. You guys beat out preschoolers as the number one customer for toys before you give them that judgmental stink eye. Did you buy like an Uno card games this year? Did you buy Pokemon cards? Did you buy a pop keychain of, say, Groot that is hanging on your keys? Or did you possibly buy this cute little plush stuffed animal that you put on your bed? If you did any of that, guess what? Guess what, Mr. Husband? Guess what, Mrs. Wife? You're part of this too. You're part of this too. You're part of this 1.5 billion in sales. It's not just action figures, it covers so much. And what I say is, welcome to the club. So, what else do we want to talk about today? I never discussed what I was drinking today, right? I'm just drinking coffee and I'm drinking gin, just the usual. Nothing really to discuss. The one thing I do in regards to my coffee is I drink my coffee black. I don't add any milk, I don't add any sugar. And when you drink your coffee black, you have to make sure you really pick a good coffee bean because all you have is that coffee bean. There's no disguising bad coffee, cheap coffee. When you're drinking it this way, it's got to be a good coffee bean. Now, if I was one of those people that would add like those little creamers, like French vanilla, and you pour the liquid in it and you spin it, and you don't even taste the coffee anymore. It's just this sweet hazelnut drink or sweet French vanilla drink. Then I could use like some sort of cheap custom blend. But when you drink your coffee black, you got to make sure you're drinking a good coffee bean. All right. So what else should we discuss this late night? I'm not sure how long I'm going to be running tonight because I haven't gotten much sleep these past few nights. Oh, you know what? The one thing I wanted to discuss, and I did crunch some numbers, is Masterverse. So I am a collector of Masterverse. This new Masters of the Universe 7-inch scale line, action figure line that was introduced in 2021 with all this state-of-the-art articulation, and debuted when Masters of the Universe Revelation debuted with like a first wave of action figures that looked like their Masters of the Universe Revelation Netflix animated series counterparts. It was June 2021 when that action figure line launched. They have amassed quite a few figures. I mean, they've been really pumping it out, and I own every single one of them. And it was, let me see, a few months ago, I brought up, maybe when I was talking to John, I'm not sure, but I brought up how valuable a certain Masterverse figure was, which was really crazy. It was always in the back of my head when I brought that up to take a look at possibly, what was the maybe top 5 most valuable Masterverse figures right now. And it's a new line, and it's a mass market line. So I really didn't expect any of them to be valuable. And be honest with you, most of them are still hovering around their regular retail price, but there are a few that actually have jumped up in value and they're really sought after. So I figured, why not count down the top 5 most valuable Masterverse figures? And what I did, it's very unscientific. Okay. All I did was go to eBay this past week. It was in the middle of the week. I forget when my cutoff was. And I took the 3 latest figures sold, the sell price, added those prices up, and then averaged them out. And that is their current day value. I only went to eBay. I know there's other places that you could buy figures, but this is where I went just to get a unscientific analysis of how valuable these Masterverse figures are. So let's count down. Let's do it. Let's count down the top 5 most valuable Masterverse figures to date. Starting with number 5. This figure, the last 3 times it sold at a price of $62. $43.13 and $31 for an average sale price of $45.37. I introduce you your 5th most valuable Masterverse figure, the Wave 10 Revelation Prince Adam figure. They really did a good job, executing this figure. It really looks like the animation model that we saw on screen. So congratulations, Prince Adam, for being the 5th most valuable Masterverse figure right now. Okay, on to number 4. This figure, the last 3 times it sold, was at $50.83, $46, and $49.99 for an average sale price of $48.94. It's the new Eternia Wave 7 Stratos figure. Look at him. I love him. I love that little that beak breather that I put on him, that he looks like, a pelican beak. Congratulations, Stratos. Stratos has always been a bridesmaid, never a bride. But this time, baby, you're a bride, Stratos always had a problem selling sometimes, and his popularity was always strange. Everyone loves him, but it looked like sometimes, depending on the figure, no one bought them. But baby, they love you enough to make you the most 4th valuable Masterverse figure around. Okay, let's move to number 3. So this figure is the 3rd most valuable Masterverse figure. It's sold, the last 3 times it sold on eBay, it sold for $63, $59.99, and $84.99 for an average price of $69.32. Yep, your 3rd most valuable figure is the Masters of the Universe Revelation Wave 7 Deluxe Man-at-Arms. And maybe it's not fair because he's a deluxe. He's a little more expensive than your traditional figures. But he, regardless, is your 3rd most valuable Masterverse figure right now. Okay, only the top 2 left. Isn't it exciting? I don't know if anyone's listening, but we're going to continue with this. So the 2nd most valuable Masterverse figure out there, sold the last 3 times it sold on eBay, sold for $80, $78, and $67.99 for an average price of $75.33. The 2nd most valuable Masterverse figure around, and this was a surprise to me, is the New Adventures He-Man, Mr. Galactic. Yeah, this is the 2nd most valuable figure right now. It's crazy. And an average price of $75.33, and this one I think was also a Wave 7 figure. I remember only having him, I think it was 16 months ago when I did an unboxing of him. This is when you explain to people hey, sometimes collecting action figures can be lucrative. All right. It's time to get to number one. And a lot of people might know this number one figure already, the most valuable Masterverse figure to date, because it's been, I mentioned it a few times on this podcast. But if you don't know, hopefully this moment is exciting for you. Drum roll, please. So the most valuable Masterverse figure is a Wave 10 figure. And the last three prices it sold on eBay was for $99.99, $99.99, and $115 for an average price of $104.99. Your most valuable Masterverse figure there is the Wave 10 New Eternia, my favorite web store figure. There he is, baby. That's your most valuable Masterverse figure. This one I did the unboxing review about 11 months ago. It hasn't even been a year. And this $22 figure is now going for, on an average, of $104. How wild is that? I'm so happy because I'm a web store fan. And because I'm a web store fan, I bought three of these. So what a return on your investment. Not like I'm going to sell them, but if I did, what a return. So those are the 5 most valuable Masterverse figures to date. There you go. It is late. What else should I talk about? Or should I just cut it short? Oh, geez. I should mention this, right? It's Father's Day. It's Father's Day weekend. And it's important for me to wish all the fathers out there, a happy Father's Day. I don't know if I ever discussed it with anyone on this podcast. I don't know if I ever brought it up. I'm a father. I am a father. I have a biological son from a previous marriage. I was divorced and then remarried. And then I have a stepson from my current marriage. And, they're both good kids, and hopefully I'm being a good father and a good role model. In regards to my fathers, I wasn't as lucky. My biological father, he did love me. He loved me. He definitely loved me a lot. But he wasn't really like present in my life too much. I mean, he was there, but he never really took like an active interest in my life and my thoughts and my feelings and my dreams, or supported me. And I don't just mean financially, but I mean, emotionally. He just wasn't, he was kind of hands off dad. One time my father had a lot of health issues and he was in the hospital a lot for different reasons. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, he had open heart surgery. They had to look at his heart valve and either repair it or replace it, possibly with a pig valve. So what they did at the hospital was, they put him under and they got this like rotary circular saw and they started cutting him down the middle of his rib cage, right straight down the middle. And they would just slice it up and broke it in 2 pieces and then split it apart, opened it up and did the surgery. And that was a major complex surgery. And my dad was in the hospital, I think for a month and a half. I think it was for a month and a half, pushing 2 months. He was in the hospital, for this procedure and recovery. And of course, like a good son, I visit him all the time. And sometimes even sleep there. And my dad told me one of those nights, he was like, son, I just want to say, I apologize. I wish I was a better father to you. I wish I was there more. I wish I was more present in your life. Wish I was more involved and partake in things that were going on with you. And he said it just wasn't the way, his dad wasn't that way with him. And this is just the way he was raised, that it was sort of that German cold machinery, as he would call it, because he was, born in Germany. And now, in this hospital room, he regretted it, and I appreciated my dad, telling me that. But what was interesting is, You know, he regretted it, right? But after like almost 2 months of being in the hospital, once he got back home, started recovering, it was the same old dad. You know, he loved me, but he didn't change his ways. You know, he didn't suddenly become more active in my life or more interested in my life. You know, and you figure if he really regretted it, you know, you would change your ways, right? If you have an opportunity, you know, you come out and you're like a new lease on life. You know, God, He gave me a new lease on life. I'm going to change my ways. I'm going to be a better person, or at least I'm going to try. I'm going to try to be a better person. But He didn't try, you know? So it's strange. You know, as a dad, I try to do better. You know, I really try to do better. The thing I say to my kids, something that my dad would never say, is, you know, I don't want you to be me. I want you to be better than me. I want you to excel. I want you to be smarter. I want you to be more successful, not just financially, but emotionally, right? I want the best for them. But dad, my dad, he'd never say that. He was the smartest one. He had to be the better one, I think. He would never say those words, I want you smarter than me. I want you better than me. I don't know. It just wasn't in his vocabulary, you know? It just wasn't in that beating heart of his, and I'm just not sure. Yeah, it just wasn't in there. You know, a lot of people have it worse. So it's not like he was abusive to me, you know? So he was what he was, and I've come to accept that. And he did love me, and I did love him. So these are not really great representations of fathers, but I know there's so many of you that are, you know, that also take this fandom, this Masters of the Universe fandom, right? And share it with your kids. You play with them, you know, and you relive your childhood with them, and you're present and you're there. And they might not express it, but they appreciate it. And they're going to appreciate it. And they're going to remember back on these moments so fondly and say, you know, my dad was there. He played with me. He was active. He loved me. And there's going to be no regrets. You know, there's just going to be great memories and so many great fathers out there. So I just want to honor you. I just want to raise a glass tonight for all of the fathers out there that are listening and not listening. You know, you're so important in kids' lives, and here's to you. Happy Father's Day. So I better sign off before I wear out my welcome. So if you enjoyed this show, please show us your support by subscribing to our streams and our channel. And please give us a like and a comment below. And you can also drop us a line too by sending us an email to eternia@gmail.com. We really do love the feedback. And as always, visit us at eternia.com for all the latest updates and news, as well as links to our social media pages like X, Facebook, and Instagram that can help you stay up to date with all of our Masters of the Universe content. So that's it. I would like to thank you all for listening, and let the power return. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.